You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with Travis Reier on Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa. Is Southern Fried Sports with Bama Online senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
If I make it through this year, I think I'm gonna put this bottle down. I guess as time goes on, I'll grow to miss it less than I will now. And I think I'm gonna tell her that I'm gonna go away for a while, till I can get this demon out.
It is 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It is time once again for Southern Fried Sports on your home for University of Alabama Athletics. Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. The show, as always, brought to you by Peterbrook Chocolatier, out there at 1530 McFarland Boulevard North in the Indian Hills section of Tuscaloosa. Still time, gang. Give them a call, 205-752-0211. Go ahead and get those Valentine's Day orders taken care of. Pre-order those hand-dipped. Talked to the chocolate lady this morning, and she had picked up some very ultra-fresh flats of strawberries that she was taking to Peterbrook Chocolatier. They're going to put those in a nice milk, white, or dark chocolate bath for you. Get those ready for the coming days there at Peterbrook Chocolatier, 1530 McFarland Boulevard North. Joined on the program by executive producer Jacob Harrison, who together we combine to form the 60-bit man of Sports Talk Radio. Big day today, Jacob, a very big day, and I'm not just talking about Alabama men's basketball at South Carolina. Tonight, you know what today is? Today is National Pizza Day. What about it, Jacob? What goes on the pie? If you're going to have one pie for the rest of your life, Jacob Harrison, what are you putting on that pizza pie?
I am a pineapple and pepperoni pizza guy.
What? Fruit doesn't go on pizza, Jacob. I don't know if you didn't get that memo.
Tomato's a fruit, and tomato sauce is the main ingredient.
Sauce. Yeah, well, it's not a fruit. It's a fruit up north, but in the south, a vine-ripe tomato is a vegetable. It's absolutely a vegetable. No, but I mean, as far as toppings, smart guy, what are you putting on your pie?
Meat lover is good too. I mean,
carnivore. Yeah.
Big carnivore guy. My wife likes the Supreme pizzas. She likes all the black olives and peppers and whatnot. I can't stand black olives.
Jeez, man. We've got some folks in our family that are black olives people too, you know. And then you get to the pizza place, and of course our place of preference is Heat Pizza Bar there in downtown Tuscaloosa, which their specialty pizzas. You can get the Hawaiian pie with the pineapple, by the way, like Jacob likes it. Apparently, a lot of people like the pineapple on the pie. I give Jacob a hard time about that, but a lot of people like the pineapple on the pie because at Heat, I know one of the best sellers there involves the pineapple. But, you know, you get with these different people, right, and they like black olives or they like anchovies or things like that on the pie, and you end up trying to, you know, the poor waitstaff person, I'd like a quarter of the pie, black olives, sausage, throw some red onion on there, a quarter of the, you know what I'm saying? You end up trying to divvy the pie up. It's hard to compromise when you got a crowd. It's best just everybody get their own, right? I guess that's where the personal pizzas came from back in the day. That's why they were so wildly successful. Hey, 205-342-9904 if you want to talk pizza or you just want to talk sports. We can do that with you on a Tuesday morning. Again, big basketball game over in Columbia, South Carolina this evening. An early tip, not 11 a.m. early, but 5:30. I like those tips. during the week. I got to think, Nate Oates, basketball coaches in general, if you're going to play on the road especially, or really any time during the week, play that 5:30 Central game. That way you get in there not too late, especially when you're on the road. You can get on the charter, get back home before midnight tonight, get your gang back to Tuscaloosa. But Alabama looking to get back on the winning side of things, 15-5, 10-1 in the league following that first SEC loss of the season to Missouri over the weekend. South Carolina, the Sybil, if you remember the movie The Exorcist, kind of all over the place. South Carolina 5-7 overall, 3-5 in the league. SEC Network for the television on the cable this evening. Of course, you'll have Chris Stewart, Brian Pasink. You'll also have Roger Hoover on the radio side of things on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Alabama opened in Vegas as a 10-point favorite. That number at last check down to 6 over in Cola this evening. Alabama now a 6-point favorite in the game. You know, South Carolina, you talk about, and look, there's reasons for what we've seen from South Carolina. I got to think, because South Carolina played just one game in the month of December. That was a 10-point loss to Houston on December the 5th. Everything else after that in December for Frank Martin's team, and he, of course, has suffered multiple times from bouts with the COVID-19 on the personal level. Everything else after South Carolina's game at Houston, and of course Alabama lost the Houston game here in Tuscaloosa because Houston had the COVID issues. One game in the month of December for South Carolina. Also had their first 3 SEC games postponed. The Gamecocks 1-2 in league play in Columbia this season. And that includes a loss last Saturday to Mississippi State, 75-59. You wonder about Alabama on the glass. Alabama statistically among teams in the SEC, right there in the top 3 in rebounding. South Carolina was out-rebounded by 16 by Mississippi State over the weekend and made just 5 of 25 shots from beyond the three-point arc. South Carolina under Frank Martin, not typically known as a prolific three-point shooting team, want to bust you up, want to bully you, you know, kind of like what Oklahoma and Missouri did to this Alabama team. And again, that shows up more on the defensive side of the floor. South Carolina, kind of the biggest positive from that loss to Mississippi State over the weekend. They did force 21 state turnovers in that loss. And look, they have a really good player in A.J. Lawson, the Gamecocks do. Comes in averaging over 17 per game. Got a scorer off the bench in Keyshawn Bryant, 14.4 per game, 5.2 rebounds. It's an Alabama team has dropped 2 of 3 for the first time since pre-conference play. You got to go back to that stretch of Clemson, Furman, Western Kentucky in mid-December. Obviously, Herb Jones and his health. We talk about that line in Vegas. You got to think there's some association to that, talking about Herb Jones's health and that line opening at 10 and perhaps dropping all the way down to 6. There's been talk of maybe Herb getting a night off tonight. More than anything, just got to get off to a better start, get going offensively. It's been a little bit of a problem of late. You just don't want to consistently be in that position of having to play uphill, especially on the road. And then you look towards the rest of the week. Obviously, Georgia comes in here on Saturday. Tomorrow night in Oxford, an opportunity for the Rebels of Ole Miss to do Alabama solid. Missouri goes to Ole Miss tomorrow night. And Ole Miss has won 4 of their last 6 in the league, 2 in a row. So take care of business tonight. Maybe Ole Miss does you a solid tomorrow evening over at the Pavilion. 205-342-9904 is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line. We are going to go deep on some college football talk, as we typically do with Brent Beard, coming up in just a little bit. Always like checking in with Brent on Tuesdays. We'll talk some hoops with him, get his thoughts on this Alabama basketball team. Also, some way too early stuff where the SEC is concerned, primarily at the skill positions on offense, because we know Alabama is among those looking to replace a lot when you talk about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, even tight end. You know, you got some question marks there. Jaleel Billingsley, obviously, going to continue to be a featured presence in this Alabama offense moving forward at that spot, but you always need another guy or two among those tight ends. We'll get into some of that with Brent Beard coming up in just a little bit. As a matter of fact, we'll do it right after this break. Back with more of a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
From the University of Alabama, this is Crimson Tide Today. It's a daily update on Bama sports, and it's brought to you by Dex Imaging, the official copier and printer provider for Alabama Athletics. Hello again, everybody. I'm Roger Hoover. Tonight, the 11th-ranked Alabama men's basketball team hits the road to South Carolina to face the Gamecocks in Columbia. Tip-off is set for 5:30 p.m. Central, with coverage on the network live from Baumhower's Victory Grill in Huntsville, starting at 4:30 p.m. Head coach Nate Oates gives his thoughts heading into this matchup.
Road games in the SEC, last one didn't go the way we wanted it to. I thought our guys showed a lot of character, though, by fighting back in the game like they did. Had a couple practices since then. We went yesterday and today. I thought, we've got to get our offense back flowing, so we worked a lot on that. Thought the ball moved a little bit better in practice. Hopefully it carries over to the game. Defensively we've been pretty good, but our starts haven't been great.
I'll have more in a moment.
There is no substitute for hard work. Just ask the Crimson Tide. At Dex Imaging, they know the meaning of hard work, too. You don't become the best in the office equipment business without it. If you need a copier and printer company that understands hard work, quality, dependability, and customer service, then give Dex Imaging a call or go to deximaging.com. Dex Imaging, the official copier and printer provider of Alabama Athletics.
Congratulations to Lindsey Devine's volleyball team, as the Crimson Tide won a pair of weekend matches against the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford. Alabama capped the weekend with a 5-set comeback victory on Saturday. Alabama's 10 aces in the match were the most in SEC play since 2008. Next up is a pair of matches on Friday and Saturday at Arkansas. And that's your Bama update. Crimson Tide Today brought to you by Dex Imaging. Crimson Tide Today is a production of the Crimson Tide Sport.
A very mild afternoon, a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The high today at 71. For tonight, becoming mostly cloudy, the low at 47. Tomorrow, a mostly cloudy day, potential for a few scattered rain showers. We stay mild, the high at 70. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
A Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM. Travis Reier, senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, with you, of course, each and every weekday morning from 11 a.m. until noon. And at this time on Tuesdays, we check in with our good pal, Brent Beard, College Sports Today and First Coast News, also a Heisman Trophy voter for quite some time now, Brent Beard. And Brent, as we bring you on, we got some big hoops coming up over the course of this week. And for the Alabama Crimson Tide, it starts with a trip to its second straight Columbia in as many games, this time in South Carolina, to take on a South Carolina Gamecocks team that we haven't really been able to figure out here of late.
Right.
Go on the road, beat Florida, lose on the road at Vanderbilt, get thumped at home over the weekend by Mississippi State. So you tell us, Brent, what can Alabama expect tonight from Frank Martin's team?
Well, and by the way, Frank Martin, if you've noticed, and I feel for him because he's had COVID twice, but seeing Frank Martin with a shaved head took me aback a little bit. I think some of it's grown out a little bit now, but Trav, he's really frustrated with this team. They were early on in the non-conference schedule. They missed a good bit of time. But look, I still look at, and Florida beat writers down here would tell you that that's a team that cannot be taken lightly. I mean, they won that game, Trav, in the Old Dome. And frankly, it was, I know it was a 6-point spread, but Trav, that game wasn't close.
Yeah, and A.J. Lawson, one of those guys. Every team in the SEC has a guy.
They
all
do.
right? It may not be great teams across the board, but you best believe every team has that dude, and A.J. Lawson is that dude for South Carolina. He's averaging over 17 a game. I think he put 22 on the Gators on the road down there. Didn't play as well against Mississippi State over the weekend, and this is an Alabama team right now, having dropped 2 of 3 of its own. It's not overlooking anybody, I wouldn't think, and certainly not when you're going on the road again. The first stretch of 1-2 for this Alabama team since right before the start of conference play. And Brent, what were your thoughts of the Missouri performance on Saturday? We've talked about it a good bit here in the last show and a half or so, and obviously, I would think the slow starts, especially on the road, they've got to come to an end here pretty quickly.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, starting early is just not worked. And again, I don't know if people really realize how good Missouri is. They are frankly, a strong team that can knock you around if you're not careful. Tremendous comeback for the Tide, and frankly. And again, Trav, you and I have done this long enough to know the officials are going to swallow those whistles, aren't they, in the last minute? You can never depend on getting a call in a situation such as that. I really wonder if Herb Jones had been healthy and that back not have been hurting him, that he would have gone up and slammed that ball at that point, which would have made a big difference. Or, frankly, could he have kicked it all out? And I know everybody's talking about the play where he seemingly got fouled. But, Trav, if you remember the previous play before that, I mean, he's got a point-blank layup. Yeah. And it doesn't go in, and I know you follow this closely, but look, to me, the problem they've got not so much with the three, but Travis finishing around the basket. They can get there, but I think what remains a mystery is how are they missing so many point blank shots at the rim?
11 of 23 on layups against Missouri on Saturday. And look, you do give credit. You know, it's not like you're out there against air, and some teams are going to make it more difficult than others. Missouri is one of those teams. Missouri had 9 block shots in the game Saturday to just 2 for Alabama. So obviously, just in terms of paint presence, that's where the game was largely decided when you look at points in the paint and how Missouri dominated on that side of things as well. Mississippi State's going to make it tough on you around the rim. The Kentuckys of the league traditionally are going to make it tough. So you get that, but not in every instance is there a lot of interference there. And for whatever reason, it becomes difficult to finish around the rim. Now, Brent, let's get into some college football talk with you. Some big money talk as well, as the SEC late last week distributed those checks, those big checks that those conference member schools love to receive. This was for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. So I'm taking that as last year, or the August, I guess, of 2019 through the July of 2020. $657.7 million among 14 schools. That includes $637.7 million from the conference office, as well as $20 million retained by the universities that participated in the 2019-2020 football bowl schedule. So this isn't really to speak to this most recent football season, but I think if you do some looking at the math, you understand how important it was to play college football in 2020, especially after you didn't have the NCAA tournament. I'll be interested to see what the numbers look like for 2020, 2021, I guess is what I'm saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And look, it's no wonder, is it, Trav, that Greg Sankey really emphasized how important it was to be able to get a season in, and to their credit, they were able to do that. And look, we don't talk about this a lot, but you and I both know it's real. Trav, those TV partners were whispering in their ear how badly they wanted to get that done for that inventory. So they were able to do so. And also, I'll be curious to know, Trev, you remember we had about 3 schools that didn't play bowl games who were scheduled to be able to do that. Arkansas, Tennessee, and listen, I think it shows some wisdom on the league's part. And Trav, is there any doubt how badly they wanted to get that new TV deal done? And to their credit, they were able to do that.
Yeah, they were. And another interesting stat from Brent, football programs with 90-plus wins in the last 10 years. Alabama in the last 10 years, when you do the division on this, it's especially nutty. 127 wins for Alabama in the last 10 years. I mean, that's essentially 13 wins per season, Brent.
Yeah.
And I don't care if we are talking about a ceiling of 15 games potentially now with the college football playoff. That's ridiculous. And look, Clemson right there at 121. But when you think about the leagues that these two teams are in, it makes Alabama's numbers even all the more mind-boggling.
It has been, and when you flesh out and look at some of those other numbers, who's number 2? Well, Clemson is. Who's 3? Ohio State, Oklahoma 4, and Georgia 5. Trev, that's basically been the college football playoff during this last. Well, obviously we had gone 10 years, but the point is between the old deal and the new deal with the college football playoff, those are the teams involved, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much your lineup. It seems like on a really consistent basis. Also, Brent, wanted to get into some maybe way too early scenarios for the SEC. And before we do that, we're going to mention, we saw this morning, Florida Notre Dame now scheduled for a home and home, Brent, 2031, 2032. It's kind of becoming depressing with some of these announcements, Brent, because I got to be honest, I'm wondering if I'm still going to be around for some of these, when we start talking about a decade off. And could it be maybe in 10 years' time, Brent, maybe in 10 years from now, Urban Frank Meyer III is finally the head coach at Notre Dame. Maybe Dan Mullen's around still at Florida. What do you think of the coaching possibilities in 2031, 2032 for these two schools?
Well, and the rivals won't like us to say this, but Trev, would it also shock you if Nick Saban is coaching during that time?
Oh gosh, at this point, the guy's not walking away from a heater.
No.
I mean, he keeps piling up these number 1 classes. I mean, is he just going to walk away from that? That's where it gets hard for me to envision that with Nick Saban. But we've got another intriguing home and home. It's just a shame that it's still a decade off with the Gators and the Irish. As far as some way too early predictions, I wanted to run by you for the 2021 SEC football season. First team All-SEC quarterback as we look ahead. Is it as easy as pointing to Athens and JT Daniels? Could it be Matt Corral? I guess it'll be interesting, right? Another one of these years where we wonder if the guy that's anointed in Hoover, as it's going to be now, at SEC Media Days, will be the guy at the end of the year. If it is JT Daniels to start the season or Matt Corral to start the season, will it be one of those two at the end of the season? Could it be Bryce Young? Could it be Max Johnson of LSU? That's where I'm not probably going to feel all that confident in whoever I put in that first team spot.
No, it's really up for grabs right now. I do think Matt Corral will make some noise. And what we're seeing for Ole Miss is the changes they're having defensively. They're bringing some guys in from the portal. They've also recruited well defensively. And I give Lane credit for that, Trav, is the reality that he knows where their weaknesses are. So that he's trying to get those improved with that too. I mean, they're hoping to get Chance Campbell from a Maryland linebacker.
Yeah, I saw that.
In there too, which is interesting. But listen, what about Johnson at LSU? I mean, he really looked good toward the end of the year. So I was pretty impressed with that. And, JT Daniels, if the offensive line is good, you think that he's got to be better than he was, because he should be totally healthy at that point too. And again, Trev, it's make it or break it for Bo Nix, isn't it? I wouldn't pick him right now, but I'm wondering with Brian Harsin. I think Harsin could help him, frankly, a whole lot better than anything that Gus Malzahn could.
Well, I think that's why Mike Bobo's there too.
Yes.
Quarterback development first and foremost. Bobo, the Bo and Bobo show, as it'll be known, down on the plains. I think that's the guy that's going to have to do the most work.
No doubt.
With Bo Nix is Mike Bobo. It's going to be Brian Harsin's offense, and I fully expect Mike Bobo to call the plays within it. But as much as anything, getting Bo Nix to another level is going to be the calling card for Mike Bobo. Also, go ahead.
And the thing, Trev, are you intrigued at all with what Florida might do with Emory Jones and the Richardson kid? And listen, you pointed this out a couple of years ago. Emory Jones, people may not realize this, as good as Trask was and he is, Trev, isn't Emory Jones a lot more the type of quarterback that Mullen really wants in his offense?
I think he's the quarterback Mullen has always wanted. I wonder if Dan has reached the point where he's concerned about so many of these teams now being able to score and being so explosive, like Alabama. If Alabama is going to continue to do what it's done for the last 3 years on offense, going to Bryce Young or this next quarterback, do you have the patience? Can you hang in there with more of that retro style of offense that we saw with Mullen more so at Mississippi State? If it is, then yeah, Emory Jones is absolutely a fit for what Mullen's been mostly about with his quarterbacks, or certainly incorporates a lot of with his quarterbacks, far more than he did with Kyle Trask. Trask was pretty effective in short yardage and on the goal line, but he wasn't going to be a 15 to 18 carry per game kind of guy. Speaking of carries, the running back position in the Southeastern Conference. I mean, you look at the departures, starting with Najee Harris, and you consider the league with, I guess, Zamir White up in over at Georgia. You've also got a stable there with James Cook. Kendall Milton might take that over at Georgia as a sophomore. You got Isaiah Spiller back at Texas A&M, Jerrion Ealy. Snoop Connor is an undervalued guy, in my opinion, at Ole Miss as well. Tank Bigsby at Auburn, John Emery, LSU's got a nice stable over there. I mean, what do you think in terms of the running back position? And then, Florida's been by committee for the most part. Mm-hmm. Tennessee's running backs all left, I think, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they're in Texas, North Carolina now. And then, of course, right here in Tuscaloosa, what do you expect from Brian Robinson, Jace McClellan, hopefully Trey Sanders, and this group?
Well, look, even without talking about the guys coming in from this freshman class, I mean, if Sanders is healthy, McClellan too, I think that's going to be a tremendous group by and large. But Trav, if Tank Bigsby is healthy, and they can do anything in the passing game to open that running game up a little bit more. Bigsby is Trev. If he lives up to the hype, he could certainly be the best running back Auburn's had in quite a while.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. I'm intrigued by Ole Miss still, though, man. I think and it's kind of like Matt Corral and the quarterback discussion that we had just a moment ago. They have the skill pieces coming back. Now, Kenny Yeboah is leaving at the tight end position. And obviously Elijah Moore, very prolific in his year under Lane, but still some dudes on that offense. I think maybe their offensive line is going to be their biggest question mark moving forward. But, Yeah, I mean, when you look at Alabama, you pull for Brian Robinson because he is a veteran. He's a guy who's bided his time. He's been sort of the next guy up for a few years now. But even if Brian Robinson is a big part of the equation, they still have a need for a dynamic, big play type of guy. And if that's a healthy Trey Sanders, a Jace McClellan, maybe a Kamar Wheaton comes in as a true freshman and gives you that, they were going to have some options. I mean, they could have as many as 7 scholarship backs in here in August. So that's a lot of guys, and even at a place that makes very good use of the running back position. Brent, as we wind down here, the East and the Western divisions, after the dust settled and everything, it felt more like the East took a step back than the step forward that we were anticipating, the division as a whole. And then the way in which it ended for the division champ in Florida. It was more promising for Georgia, more optimism as a result of that for Georgia moving forward. But is it back to our perception being, well, it's Georgia and everybody else in the East, after we were starting to think maybe there was a condensing in terms of the gaps between these teams over there?
Oh, I think that Georgia will get the nod because of Daniels. And look, the truth of the matter is, if you put it all together, the Florida quarterbacks may have just about as much experience on the field as Daniels does. But if he can improve like we think he can, but look, I still think Georgia will be quite salty. And by the way, Dan Lanning got rewarded, to say the least, didn't he, Trav?
That's a couple of times in the last few years for him.
Absolutely. And they know that schools are coming after Lanning, to his credit, mentioned with that Texas job. So they've certainly rewarded him on that one, too. So, and Georgia, I think, will be fine defensively. So I would give them the early nod over Florida. I'm not sure Gator fans will appreciate me saying that down here right now, but they were quite disappointed with that bowl game situation. But they've got a good amount of talent coming back. They're not happy with Todd Grantham coming back, I can tell you that. But I tell you, Bud, to me the interesting situation will be who's going to be the third team in that East.
I might go Missouri there.
I think I would too. I agree with that.
I like the coach, and I like the coach quarterback tethering there right now better than I like anything else probably in the SEC East, Brent.
And listen, and this should be said too, Trev. How much is Missouri going to miss Larry Roundtree, who, look, is not one of your more heralded backs in the SEC? Well, we both know that Roundtree could put 100 yards on just about anybody he played.
Yeah, he was definitely the sort of thunder in that equation over there, no doubt about it. Had that classic sort of size at 5'10", 210 pounds. But I'm assuming Tyler Beatty is coming back, and that dude is explosive. So
he is.
If they get Beatty back to go along with the promising quarterback situation they have and what Drinkwitz is able to do on that side of the ball as sort of the overseer of it all, they could be, you're right. I agree. I think they could jump into that number 3 spot because it's a mess right now at Tennessee, South Carolina,
it is,
Vanderbilt, Kentucky. They've got to figure out some things at quarterback and offensively in general. I know they've had some staff upheaval moving on from Eddie Gran on that side of the ball in Lexington, but a lot of questions. Now in the West, you've got some quarterback storylines. Obviously, Matt Corral back at Ole Miss. But when you look at the perceived top 3 teams in that division, we figure it'll be Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU. You've got some new situations here at quarterback, although Max Johnson, again, really got some beneficial experience down the stretch, road win at Florida, and memorable win over Ole Miss to kind of finish that season. But The Bryce Young era at Alabama expected to get underway. Texas A&M finally moving on there at its quarterback position. What do you see the shakeout there right now, Brent?
Well, I still think Bama's is the top of the division, and they deserve that. But I'll tell you what, Trev, A&M, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on Jimbo, and now obviously Kellen Mond will be gone, but I think he's happy with the quarterback. And listen, what makes them so dangerous this year, Trev, it's two things. One is they're going to be really good on that defensive line, right? He has recruited well with some real run stuffers and guys who can get after the passer. And the other thing, people may not realize this, but Trev, their toughest games for A&M are at home, including Alabama. So that's a real advantage for them. And listen, I'm going to say this next one as a precautionary tale here, but LSU's got the talent to be 3, but I'm still saying that great unknown is that cloud over that program. And you saw this week, like I did, with this investigation going on in Title IX. And listen, they've got people investigating them right now where this is serious business.
When the authorities investigate you on how you investigate things internally, it's probably not a good thing. And we've talked about that a lot. Yeah.
And I'm guessing, Trav, when they ask questions in that situation, they already know the answers, don't they?
Yes, that's what I learned from a wise man many years ago. When the federales ask you a question, they already know the answer.
But
and when the big black SUVs pull up, they already know the answer. So
and finally is if O and that staff, if they're jettisoned out of there before the season begins, who knows what kind of effect that can have on them.
Yeah, no doubt. And you talked about A&M and the quarterback situation there. We did see Haynes King here as a true freshman in the blowout loss the Aggies incurred against Alabama back in early October. So I'm assuming, I guess, that he's next up there for Jimbo in College Station. As always, Brent, appreciate the time. Always great stuff. Always enjoy having Brent Beard on the program. Thanks, my man.
Always, brother. Take care.
If you haven't already, give Brent a follow on Twitter at Brent Beard, BEAIRD. Back with more of a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
You're listening to Southern Fried Sports with BamaOnline.com senior analyst Travis Reier on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Day in 1943 in Newark, New Jersey, the one, the only, Joseph Frank Pesci. How about that filmography, huh? Now, for me, Pesci, it's all about mostly Raging Bull, Goodfellas, and Casino. But a lot of folks, man, Home Alone, big ups in that one. My Cousin Vinny, big part of that one. So the spectrum is pretty wide for Joe Pesci. 78 years old today. I bet Joe enjoys National Pizza Day. What do you think? I'm guessing he does. Hailing from Newark, New Jersey. The mean streets of Newark, New Jersey. It kind of brings to mind, too, with the National Pizza Day. It seems like more and more, I don't know, Jacob Harrison could probably help me with this. He informed me today that tomato, just like pineapple, is the same thing on a pizza. I'm still struggling to get my head around that, but
I'm sorry.
That's what he told me. That's what I was told. Pizza and wings, Jacob. It seems like more and more they are conjoined almost, right? So if you had to choose between pizza or wings, you had to make a choice there. Which one are you going with on National Pizza Day, of all things?
That's tough, man. Because I agree, the whole pizza and wings thing, it goes pretty well together.
They were smart. Those folks were smart, weren't they?
Yeah.
Putting them together like that. A good marriage, good union.
That's why they make six figures a year. I mean, National Pizza Day, I'll go with the pizza, but probably the other 364 days of the year, I'm going wings.
Where it gets tough for me, or where it gets easier, I guess, in making a call, is that I've actually had bad wings from places. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to find bad pizza, isn't it? I mean, just really inedible pizza, I guess is what I'm saying. Wings, you can mess up wings. You can mess up wings starting with the wings that you buy. Some of the places, some of the restaurants, even here in Tuscaloosa, are those really chicken wings? They're not large enough to be, hummingbird wings, I don't think. But they're passed off as chicken wings. So the quality of the wing, just to start with, can be a problem in some instances. I just think you have more success in terms of consistency of at least decent pizza. Would you agree with that, Jacob? Well, apparently he does. Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation. That's all we're doing here, is trying to decipher between the popularity of pizza and wings. I just think it's harder to find bad pizza. You can run across bad wings a little more easily than you can than bad pizza.
Well, I think it depends on, how you feel about certain chains. There's definitely some places where to avoid based off of reputation. But I do agree. It's a lot harder to find bad pizza.
Well, just look at the pizza chains that now run wings with their pizza, right? If you get the pizza and the wings, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, you're going to think, man, this pizza is a lot better than these wings from this national chain. Anyway.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
In my experience.
205-342-9904. That is the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line. Once again, we appreciate Brent Beard joining us here on the program, getting you ready for some college basketball tonight over in Columbia, South Carolina, and taking a peek ahead. You had that Alabama Pro Day. Our guy, Bama Online alum and a great neighbor in Chase Goodbread, had it on Twitter yesterday. The Alabama Pro Day coming up has been scheduled, according to Chase, for March the 23rd. So that's when you get the sense that the spring football is either ramping up or you're already kind of in the midst of it, because you're already seeing some spring game dates for, I believe it's April the 17th, that mid-April sweet spot that you typically have for spring football games. You're seeing some of those come about. And if that is the case, and if there is going to be maybe an extension granted in terms of the window to get in the 15 allotted practices, I would think in a lot of years Alabama has started spring practice in earlier March. Kind of have that first practice on a Friday and then let the boys go do spring break, and then bring them back after spring break and finish the stretch. Not exactly sure of spring break dates for Alabama. Feels like, I think to some of the students and people involved, probably has felt like spring break in some way, some form or fashion since spring break last year. That was essentially when the pandemic hit, right? It was right there at spring break in 2020. So we'll see how that works out as far as spring football goes. Going to step aside to our final break. When we come back, we'll put a wrap on a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports right here on Tide 100.9 FM right after this.
The President. A very mild afternoon, a mixture of clouds and sunshine. The high today at 71. For tonight, becoming mostly cloudy, the low at 47. Tomorrow, a mostly cloudy day, potential for a few scattered rain showers. We stay mild, the high at 70. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9.
The flagship station for Alabama Crimson Tide football.
Alabama touchdown.
Only on Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
What I had forgotten. No spring break this year at UA. That was announced back in the fall. Spring break at the University of Alabama was scheduled for March 12th through the 19th. Now, I see on the academic calendar for UA a study break on March the 15th. That's a Monday. So maybe a mini break there for Alabama instead of the traditional spring break in 2021. Perhaps that's the route that UA is taking. So there you go. No spring break this time around. Some other things we wanted to get into in the world of sports. Right here locally, pretty big news, right? Tuscaloosa County High hiring away Adam Weingarten from Auburn High School. Jacob Harrison, our resident high school football expert. That's a big hit. Jacob Harrison. We're talking about a guy who coached Auburn to that memorable or forgettable, I guess, depending on which side of the stadium you were on that night at Bryant-Denny Stadium. 7A final between Auburn and Thompson High School. Regardless, right? This is a big-time pickup for Tuscaloosa County, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was coaching a 7A state champion. You know, obviously should have been a state champion, but at least a contender at the very least. And with Tuscaloosa County, it's been rough because they're in such a difficult region. They got Thompson and Hoover, all these incredible schools. This might be the thing that can help them turn around.
Just an absolutely brutal region for Tuscaloosa County. The region of death is the only way I know to describe it. Region 3 and 7A in Alabama. What do you got over there? Hoover, Thompson, Spain Park.
Trussville.
Ah, jeez. But you like the commitment from Tuscaloosa County High School. It's a big hire in Adam Weingarten. No doubt about it. Did you also see Super Bowl television viewership was down? But the streaming was up. That's what you need to pay attention to. A lot of people are going to talk about, people just not interested in the NFL, not interested in the Super Bowl. Well, I mean, that second half, how many people were going to hang in there for that? But you had viewership at 91.7 million television viewers, but you had the live streaming was nearly 6 million in video streams. So it's kind of continuing to trend that way. That's not going to stop anytime soon. Told you yesterday, I watched the game both ways. I watched it on television from an airport bar in Atlanta, Georgia, Daddy, and then plugged into the stream while traveling. So it was incredibly accessible. Going to be more and more that way, too. Hey, let's get with Pat here as we wind down a Tuesday edition of the program. Pat, what do you got for us?
Hey, Travis. Wanted to talk a little bit about, is there any legs with Deshae Townsend to Alabama to coach our D-backs? That Deshae had quite a career in the NFL, and he was a little bit slow getting started, but once he got started, it turned out to be a very, very good, and has coached some very, very good D-backs.
Yeah, that's a name that instantly comes to mind with Carl Scott moving on to the NFL. As you said, Deshae, just a great player at Alabama on those mid-'90s teams, mostly under, I guess, Gene Stallings. You know, it would be sensible for sure. Again, when you just connect dots, I don't know what Deshae's background as a recruiter is. I'm assuming it's good. I know he has worked in the Southeastern Conference, I guess most recently over at Mississippi State under Dan Mullen. So definitely a sensible name to keep an eye on in Deshae
Well,
Townsend.
I think that being he's so young, that he could relate very well to players.
Sure.
Now, how well he relates to mom and dad, it might be a different story.
Yeah. Well, and with Nick Saban, nostalgia doesn't matter. You know, where we like to think of former players for roles and positions. And look, there are some in those roles at Alabama right now. That's not to say that Nick Saban has not hired those kind of guys in the past. But my point is, with this type of position, as much as anything, Nick Saban needs to know he's getting, if not an elite recruiter right now, a guy who has teacher. A teacher, yeah, but he wants a recruiter. And I'm sure if you put Deshae in that spot with his experience, as you outlined for us, and given where the program is right now, if some of these guys that have moved on had great success recruiting for Alabama, I would think Deshae would be capable of doing the same. We'll see.
Gotcha. All right, I just had saw where that name had popped up, and it sounded like a good one to me. Because I remember how well he played here, and just because you can play well doesn't mean you can teach well, though.
Yeah, I think I would think Deshae would be fine with the teaching part again. Recruiting breaks all ties for Nick Saban, and that's what I'm sure it will likely come down to once again.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat,
do you think that he's going to look more at a coach being able to have ties to the Texas area?
That would not hurt.
Texas, Oklahoma is a hotbed of recruiting.
No doubt. That would not hurt. And a guy like Doug Belk, who is over at the University of Houston right now, worked previously as a grad assistant directly under Nick Saban 5 or 6 years ago. He might be a name to keep an eye and ear open for as well.
Gotcha. All right, hey, appreciate you. Thank you for taking my call,
Pat.
Travis. Have a blessed afternoon, okay?
You do the same, my friend. Thanks, Pat. That's going to do it for a Tuesday edition of Southern Fried Sports. Thanks, as always, to Jacob Harrison, trying to keep the show between the ditches. It's tough, man. That's why we go through the producers like we do here, I think. I think we run them off. I think it's the equivalent of like Junction Boys trying to work this show, But Jacob does a great job. And the lunch whistle today, it's National Pizza Day. What else is going to be the lunch whistle other than Heat Pizza Bar, downtown Tuscaloosa at Government Plaza. It is a Tuesday. That means Thai chicken pizzas starting at 6 o'clock. The personal favorite goes for just $7. National Pizza Day, Heat Pizza Bar. Can't think of a better pairing than that. Till 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.